Hey there, friends. It's Bill McDonald, the reading and writing doctor. I want to tell you that I've enjoyed working with all of you this summer who are in the CREST online training. For those of you who have asked me for help with strategies on specific test questions from this past year's test, and just the connection that a lot of you have been giving to me through Messenger or email, or some of you that are closer to me texting, just even in the trainings, the positive reinforcement and encouragement that I get from a lot of you. I just want to take the time to thank you for your words. I feel like words are important, and I think that the reason that this next question had so many English 2 students struggling with it was because the students are reading so quickly through an entire passage, they forget to zoom in on what are the key words in the question, what is the subject of the question, what is the predicate, what tense is it in past tense or present or future. If your students would truly study the things that I'm going to share in this video based on what I'm going to call a cause transition effect and action transition reaction, because of some unknown event, there's a sentence that I'm going to call the box sentence that they want your students to insert. So when you're improving the content, you're adding, removing, replacing, or moving something. So the writers of the passage intentionally kept out a sentence that was an important detail, what I call a dum-dum or a smarty, a sentence from the passage, and wanted to know if your students would be able to decide, does it go here A, here B, here C, or here D? Why do I like using my hand and my arm for reading and revising is because your students are going to have their hand and arm on test day. And so even though they're not allowed to use a graphic organizer for the most part, all of them, they're all allowed to draw their own hand in terms of a paragraph. And I'm going to show you 2 simple ways using my hand and my arm to turn a question that got 43% correct in the entire state of Texas to probably doubling it if the students would apply these strategies that I'm going to be teaching you on this video. So please, I beg you, do me a favor, share the video with your teacher friends. I just need to remind you that all of you who teach reading are going to get 2 editing passages this coming spring, improving the conventions, and 2 revising passages, improving the content. This is going to be improving the content by adding a sentence to an already existing paragraph in a certain place. And for that teacher out there who's asking me for more teeter-totter examples, this one is just for you, Kathleen. I want to help you out to make sure that there's enough examples. I'll try to sprinkle in some cause and effect, compare, contrast, problem, solution, conflict resolution, same, different. There's all kinds of relationships that connect one sentence to the next, or one paragraph to the next, or one passage to a different passage. And those are the ones that the kids struggle with a lot. So let me show you a way to solve this kind of a question. And I hope that even if you don't uh, use any of my materials, that you'll use your hand to teach your students the simple concept of placing a sentence inside a paragraph, not inferring, not read between the lines, but inserting, place, place between the lines. We've got to figure out which sentence something belongs in, where it fits the best. So let me share my document camera. This was from the 10th grade test from this past spring. Just as a reminder, no, they have not released the test and won't do so probably until mid to late August based on what they normally do. But I feel like because I have connections with so many parents who I'm helping, I want to be able to help teachers as well because to be honest, you guys need strategies more than the parents do because you're the ones who actually are going to be applying and implementing things this coming year. So I highly suggest that when only 43% of the students in an entire state get a question correct, it means that whatever you all are using, the graphic organizers, the diagrams, whatever charts that your program or curriculum has, it's not filling in the gaps. And so I feel like it's important that you consider supplementing something to fill in the gaps that are being left when almost 60% of the kids in Texas are not understanding a simple question about inserting a sentence in a paragraph. So rules, let's read the question softly or loudly, depending on the situation. Sure you guys can see it pretty well. All right, there we go. April would like to add, A of arm, the following detail to the sixth paragraph, where 6 sentences 30 through 34, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34. Okay, here's the sentence. Capital it pronoun provided past tense. That's very important. They started the sentence with a pronoun, which means I need to look at a previous sentence to figure out what the noun is, who or what is the it that's being talked about in this sentence. So we can place it after that sentence. Provided past tense, skateboarding with an unprecedented, in other words, never before happened, coverage and led to effect right there. So anything that leads to something happening, it means that there's an effect, there's a result, there's a reaction to the public viewings, the general public viewing of skateboarding as professional athletes. Where should this sentence be placed? Okay, and the 4 choices are before sentence 30, which means before the paragraph even begins. And I'm going to already tell you, since your sentence that you're trying to insert starts with a pronoun it, the cardinal rule states that don't begin a paragraph using the pronoun. Start with the noun. What is the subject of this paragraph? And for sure, this sentence. Then you can start using pronouns. So I can already say that I'm going to eliminate sentence 30 before, because it would mean before I've even read anything in the paragraph, I'll be using a pronoun. How can you have an effect or result without an action or a cause or an event that takes place after sentence 30, after sentence 31, and after sentence 32? So when you flip it over, I've gone ahead and numbered the paragraphs for you. The history of skateboarding 1 through 6. And since that's going to be, what was that, question number 9, just so you know, all of 9th and 10th grade are going to get one more regular revising test, editing test, and reading test, and expository / persuasive test for those retesters in December. So I highly suggest that if you're a secondary, use the release test, the 9 revising questions, and the 9 editing questions from this spring, whenever it comes out. If you teach 3rd through uh, 8th grade, go ahead and use any of their prior release tests from 4th and 7th grade for editing and revising, because none of the rules are going to change. It's just that some of the questions, only 25% of the entire test will, on editing and revising, be what they're going to call constructed type. I was told by the director of content for writing that they're not going to have any 2-point editing or revising questions. No 3-point. It's just no 5-point. It's just going to be 1-point questions where the kids will do the 8 or 9 things that are called the constructed type responses. So there's the entire paragraph. And so what I did was, right above the numbers of the sentence, which they label for you in editing and revising, I placed the letter of where they told me to place the sentence that we just finished reading about it and provided. Here, after 30, after 31, and after 32. So it would be in one of those spots. So what I've done, I looked at the keywords and I said to myself, well, since the sentence, if you look right here, I went ahead and placed my sentence. It's either going to be an insert a sentence or insert a box question sentence. And so I went ahead and moved it over here. It pronoun provided skateboarding with unprecedented coverage and led to the public viewing of skateboarders as professional athletes. Since common grammar can lead you to understand that something leading to something else is an effect or a result, we would need a cause to happen before this sentence. So that's what we'll be focusing on. So I have my hand here. That is my revising graphic organizer. It's the 22 spring 10th grade test, question number 9. There's 9 revising, 9 editing in 2 different passages each. They asked us to go to a certain paragraph, paragraph number 6. Okay. And the cool thing about why I have all these P's here, that's my palm of my hand. Turn off my ESPN notification so you guys don't have to hear that for the next few minutes. So lots of things start with a P, and then the rest of the hand is any kind of details that they tell us in a question or questions that ties everything together. So I would be able to use this. You cannot give me a reading question from 3rd through 10th grade without me being able to use this revising graphic organizer to answer a question regarding reading or revising. That's why I call it so handily my revising graphic organizer. So let's take a look at the content of the sentences, and I've labeled each one using the fingernails, okay? Since they didn't ask me, since I already know it's an effect, and they didn't ask me to place anything after 33 or before 34 or after 34, I didn't even bother writing those in there because I already know that I need it to be an effect. So if we look here, the X Games placed skateboarding on the main stage. So because I told you that we should not start a sentence in a paragraph, a topic sentence with a pronoun, it wouldn't make sense to have the pronoun in front of the noun, in this case, skateboarding or the X Games. If I was to place it after 30, I'm going to say it's too vague, on the main stage. Well, if the being placed on the main stage is going to lead to public viewing, Well, what do you mean by public viewing and coverage? So I don't have enough information with that one. So it's vague. So I would either put an X, or I would at least put a question mark, because it doesn't give me enough information that would cause me to see why skateboarding would be viewed so much and lead to what they said was so much coverage and people seeing it as a professional game. So um, if we look at sentence 31, using the ESPN formula for connecting with younger audiences, skateboarding was included in the 2020 games. Now, it was included, that's past tense. If you're included in the 2020 games of the Olympics, that is going to be a cause, a reason, a why that these the skateboarders would get so much coverage, so much attention, so much viewing. So it seems like, since that's in past tense and our sentence is in past tense, it seems like I'm going to lean towards this one here, because let's see how that sounds together. It was included in the 2020 Olympic Games that provided skateboarding with unprecedented coverage and led to the public viewing of skateboarders as professional athletes. Why was it public viewing? Because all Olympic sports are on television. They even use the word ESPN. I don't really know if it was ESPN who did the 2020 Olympics, but it doesn't matter. It just said, once you hear that something past tense was placed in the games, that means it was going to be on TV, and it provided past tense, and led to past tense. So my best answer so far is going to be C. Let's see what's wrong with D. They hope skateboarding will uh, rejuvenate the Olympics. So hoping is something that hasn't happened yet, something that you're looking forward to. So that would be the future. And they're hoping that it's going to showcase sportsmanship. Since that's not something that has happened yet, it wouldn't make sense to go to from the future to something of the past. That's not going to be the result. Uh, this having uh, skateboarding rejuvenating the Olympics could have its own effect, not the effect that we're talking about here. So, based on the way we laid out the answer choices, the best place to insert that sentence is right there, letter C, after sentence 31, or you could say before sentence 32. Let's take a look at the answer choices. After sentence 31, and it doesn't say before sentence 32, it says after sentence 32. And so we said we can't start a sentence, a paragraph with a pronoun if we're trying to pick between vague and specific. The letter B answer is a little bit too vague, and letter C is an example of a cause, transition, effect relationship. And so, for those of you who have the rules of editing and revising, something else that you can look at is Mrs. PVC, the subject. Who was the subject? It was about skateboarding being placed on TV for the Olympics. That was the specific thing. It resulted in mass viewing. So that was a specific answer versus the the verb tense of the last answer was future, and we were looking for something that was matching the past, and we wanted something that wasn't vague. So between the two answers that were relevant, we would choose the one that's more specific. So one more thing I want to do for some of you who are wanting to practice the teeter-totter, compare, contrast relationship is, if you look at this right here, using the bottom half, the arm half, uh, here we have transition, and if you look closely, every teeter has a transition to a totter. In other words, everything on this left side has a transition, or what I sometimes call a transmission, to everything on the right side. And so all these words are red, and all of their opposite words are red because they match. Every cause, why, or reason has an effect or result, which was the case for this answer choice. Every action, blue, has a reaction, blue. Every conflict, orange, hopefully has a resolution. Every problem hopefully has a solution. Not there, but it applies in this case. If I have a paired passage, they're going to ask you some questions just about passage one, that we'll call it the left shoe. Some questions just about passage two, the right shoe. Then they'll ask you a couple of questions. How are the details, the dum-dums, or the smarties, the sentences, the same in this passage as this one? And they'll also ask you a couple of questions. How are the dum-dums, the details of this passage different? How do they contrast with the details, the dum-dums, the smarties, or the sentences from here? So let's take a look at the answer that we chose, letter C, and here's our insert. I told you it was an effect, it was a result because you could see the keywords. And so I would already place it inside the effect column of the teeter-totter, the totter of the teeter-totter relationship, the saw of the seesaw. So it said it provided skateboarding with unprecedented coverage and led to the public viewing of skateboarders as professional athletes. Well, what is the it? Well, if we look at that sentence that we said it belongs with, using the ESPN formula for connecting with a younger audience, skateboarding was included in the 2020 Olympic Games. That's inside paragraph 6, sentences 30 through 34, and that was sentence 31. So since this was sentence 31, it was paragraph 6, then we say, okay, well, which sentence are we going to place it afterwards? Well, I would probably say it might be a good idea to write it. Let's put it after sentence 31, which happens to be letter C in our answer choices, that this sentence would go. So there's two different ways to use the graphic organizer in this case to, first of all, grab the sentence and place it in the 4 places to do what you might say guess and check, but you didn't have to do a lot of guessing and checking because of the pronoun, because it was past tense. The pronoun need to be supported by a noun that was written previously to it. And then we also used the teeter-totter, seesaw, compare. And so even though this is a revising question, the the thing with revising and reading is just understanding the content, regardless of what teeter-totter relationship that we're talking about. And revising is improving the content, making something look better later than it does right now. So we'll call that the now and later. That's what revising is. Revision, to look at it differently, to look at it with better quality after we've done adding, removing, replacing, or moving something. So this is a free sample for all of you out there for who are needing something. If it was only 43% in the whole state, more than likely, more than half of your kids missed this question as well. So think about using the hand for inserting a sentence in a paragraph and using the teeter-totter seesaw, because all your kids have to do is draw a T and then write the cause relation, write the cause on one side and the effect on the other. So tune in next time where we share another strategy, concept, or idea for another question that your students have trouble with. Take care and God bless.